Hey, and welcome. My name is Pheobos, a.k.a. and today I will be talking about convergent evolution in Pokémon and show off some new designs I did. So, in the spirit of not just doing videos on the Fakemon I designed to upload on Instagram, I realized that doing some designs, more or less exclusive for YouTube, could also be a fun way to market this content too. That said, if this video does well, don't be surprised if I do more things like this in the future. So today, let's talk about convergent evolution in Pokémon, or ecological similar Pokémon, or regional fakes, whatever you want to call it. Pokémon that share similar traits to other species of Pokémon. So far, there's only been 6 of these Pokémon that have been introduced. Toedscool and Toedscrew to Tentacool and Tentacruel, Wiglett and Wugtrio to Diglett and Dugtrio, and Poltergeist and Sinisha to Sinisea and Poltergeist. This, of course, does mean that we do not have a large sample size to go off for making our own designs as fan creators, which does, at times, in my experience, make it a little too easy to still blur the lines between regional forms and these regional fakes a bit too much. With that in mind, I took this opportunity to use this new platform to explore some simple ideas for convergent Pokémon, and a couple more complicated ones. So let's get started. We all know of the Pokémon Luvdisc, a small, pink, heart-shaped water type that has very underwhelming stats. Honestly, someone should make an evolution of it. Anyway, our story starts, well, with me actually. One day in early 2023, I had this idea that I wanted to try out, where I was thinking it could be fun and interesting to make different forms for Luvdisc. Considering Luvdisc is based on hearts, I was thinking what if it had different forms or relatives that were clubs, spades, and diamonds in shape. I thought it'd be interesting to, instead of having Luvdisc just be the one Pokemon with this whole love aesthetic to it, maybe it'll be also based on playing cards. Instead, I noticed how the sketch I made for the spade had already started to look like it could be a convergent Pokemon. I noticed how the leaf shape in it started to form, and I worked from there. Though it was a relatively simple idea, the silly idea I started with had somehow became my first venture into making convergent evolutions. So let me introduce you to the first ever convergent Pokemon I designed. Meet Luvdisc. Luvdisc is simply inspired by spades, walking leaves, and plant hoppers. And quite honestly, that's pretty much all the thought that went into it. Luvdisc, the leaf Pokemon. The similarity in its size and shape initially made researchers mistake this Pokemon for a Luvdisc that made its way inland. Upon further inspection, data pointed to this Pokemon's biology having more in common with actual tree leaves opposed to Luvdisc. It spends most of its day amongst branches in the tree it chose as its home. It is light enough to be swept away by a strong gust of wind. Its biggest threat are Pokemon that eat tree leaves or gain nutrients from them. So, when talking about convergent evolution in Pokemon, my mind usually circles back to the first convergent Pokemon they revealed, being Wiglett. Which does lead me to my next point. So a while back, I had this silly idea, let's say. What if there were convergent evolutions of convergent Pokemon? It's silly and maybe a bit confusing, but let me show you what I mean. This is Wiggle, with its name stemming from Wiggle and Ghoul, of course. Heck, even its name sounds just a bit like Wiggle pronounced weirdly. Wiggle is meant as a convergent evolution of Wiglett, having a similar look to Wiglett's pale white body and red nose, while Wiggle is pale and see-through and bound to a discarded skull. The idea for Wiggle is inspired by the anime trope of your soul leaving your body, like seen here. I haven't made a design for a Wiglett evolution yet, but who knows, maybe I'll do so in a future video. Wiggle the Spectre Pokémon. When it was first discovered, it was written off as nothing more than a disrupted Duskull. But only when it began to move, it was discovered to be a new species of Pokémon that had rooted its body within the skull. Its appearance seems to resemble the Pokémon Wiglett. Despite this, it seems to have no relation to either Wiglett or Diglett. Its translucent body gives off a freezing feeling to the touch. So I'm pretty sure we all know the Pokémon known as Jynx. And I believe we will all have varying opinions on this controversial Pokémon. Be it negative opinions about it stemming from controversial early design, which I don't think I need to explain right now. But let's be honest with ourselves. It wasn't good. Or from it just being kind of creepy and somewhat too human. Or you might actually like it. Though that said, in all my years of being in the Pokemon fandom, I find people that like Jynx rather hard to come by. Personally, I'm somewhat on the middle ground here, which has in the past inspired me to make a cross-gen evolution for. But today, we're not going to talk about just Jynx. Instead, we're going to talk about Jynx. Jynx is a convergent evolution I made for Jynx, and the one I want to discuss right now. Is inspired by the type of genie that would appear after you rub a magical lamp, and plenty of these are often depicted as pretty women, and are often wearing barely anything at all, though that we can't quite just do in a Fakemon design, now can we? Instead, I've made everything look that would usually appear beneath the, let's say, chest of a Jynx. Here, as if it were a smoky tail, which genies often have depicted coming out of the lamps. It is a ghost and psychic type, which, in my opinion, would best reflect genies. Jynx, the genie Pokemon. It doesn't have a true, tangible body. The body it seems to project is one that had researchers think of it as a form of Jynx at first. Upon further inspection, it seems as if the Pokemon itself is the lamp the body projects from. Its projected body appears to be a smoke-like substance emitted from the lamp, though it is still unclear how it does this. We've now covered 3 out of the 7 convergent evolution designs I wanted to showcase in this video, with 2 simple ones in Luvdisc and Wiglett, and a more complicated one in Jynx. My aim is to showcase different ways in which you can make convergent evolutions work for various Pokemon. Oh, and hey, if you've liked what you've seen so far, maybe let me know by leaving a like, a comment, or maybe by subscribing. Lets me know that you'd like to see more. That said, I do have a pair of relatively simple ideas coming up next. I think it's safe to assume that if you know Pokemon and you're watching someone discuss Fakemon they made on YouTube, you're bound to be familiar with the Pokemon Koffing. Koffing, being a round ball of gas basically, gives it a very wide range of possibilities for both regional forms and regional fakes. The convergent form I would like to introduce to you right now is Melling, with its name stemming from mellow, melon, and Koffing. Melling is a simple concept when it comes to convergent evolutions. While Koffing is a ball full of gas, Melling is a fruit filled to the, fruit punch. Whereas Koffing is light enough so it can float, Melling can float too, but only if it's drifting in water. It's a pretty simple concept overall, but I think there's fun to be had in those as well. Melling, the melon Pokemon. Its hardened outer shell protects its juicy insides from harm and infections. Despite it looking like the Pokemon Koffing, Melling has been described to have a sweet smell, which attracts both people and Pokemon alike towards it. The seeds of a melon can safely be harvested and planted. Amongst these seeds, there is a 1 in 10 chance of one growing into a new melon. Others will grow regular fruit. For melon, I have done an evolution, which was surprisingly hard to name, considering Koffing and Weezing both end in ing. Anyway, let me introduce you to melon. Cantaloupe. Cantaloupe's name comes from a different type of melon, being the cantaloupe. I couldn't very well go about and give it the same name now, could I? The inspiration behind cantaloupe comes from an occurrence which happens in all sorts of fruit, including watermelons, being conjoined growth. Each of its fruit heads are fused together. Cantaloupe, the melon Pokémon. Cantaloupe's large body contains very sweet innards in each of its 3 fused fruits. The sweet smell it releases from both its mouths is used by farmers to attract wild Pokémon towards its field that will instinctively scare away bugs or other pests. Though it looks similar to the Pokémon known as Weezing, it is, unlike Weezing, beloved for its sweet scent. In some rare cases, the 3rd fruit in Cantaloupe's body can grow a mouth too. Okay, so 2 more months to go, and these 2 up next are actually the 2 that did spark the desire in me to make this video. So hey, we all know and love Magikarp. Yeah, I said it, the last 2 convergents are of Magikarp and Gyarados. I've tackled the 2 of them in part because of the speculation that there were planned convergence of Magikarp and Gyarados in Scarlet and Violet, seeing as there was evidence found in the files to support the fact that there would be convergence for them that were scrapped. So, what do you do when you want to make a Magikarp convergent? Well, quite simply, you put it on land and slap some legs onto it. Meet Magico, name stemming from Magikarp and Gecko. Magico's design is more or less Magikarp, but flipped on its side, moving its eyes up on top of it and giving it legs. Its blue color is picked to kind of mirror Magikarp being bright orange and a deep blue sea. So I thought by making Magico blue, typically the color of water, on land, plus the fact that geckos can normally already be blue, would be a fun choice for it. Magico, the lizard Pokémon. Magico, named in reference to its similar observed behavior to the Pokémon Magikarp, it is dim-witted and does not have a sense of danger, which, while it does make it more approachable for people, also makes it very easy prey. Clusters of up to 20 eggs can hatch together at the same time. It is easy pickings for Braviary and Mandibus. If lucky, 1 or 2 of these Magico manage to survive long enough to reach evolution and repeat the cycle. Okay, so I hope you've been liking the video so far, because I have, in my opinion, saved the best for last. Of course, it's the evolution of Magico. Gyarados. So, with Magico being a gecko, you just know I couldn't not make its evolution a big threatening lizard. Gyarados takes its name from one of the lizards that inspired it, being the Gila monster. It also takes its frilled mane and on its head from frilled lizards. Its body pretty much is formed the way that a Gyarados would look if you flipped it on its side, giving it a snake-like body which suits a big lizard like itself. Gyarados, the ravenous Pokémon. Even though it's a semblance to the Pokémon Gyarados, it is a completely different species. Segmented body allow for it to move freely across desert sands. When it is about to strike, it pops up its frills to instill fear in its prey, so it won't be able to get away from it. Gyarados has a wicked temper, making it prone to lashing out. Areas where Gyarados live, or are spotted often, can be recognized by huge claw or bite marks marking its territory. So, that was it for today. 7 new Convergent designs. Let me know which was your favorite. If you would like to see me do something like this again in the future, or if you have other suggestions for fun videos for me to do like this. Oh, and of course, if you like this video, maybe you'll find yourself liking this video too. And I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!